So it's almost going to go live, just loading. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the participants in. So, Sakhi. So so the participants are going to join soon. And I'm going to first, I'm struggling a bit of this. I'm going to first put it back to Tara to introduce you and then back to you.
Okay, cool. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you so much for joining in today or watching from YouTube or Facebook, wherever you are. I have the great privilege of introducing Ananga Sakhi Dd Mataji. I've just chatted with her a little bit and I feel very inspired by her. So she's a disciple of His Holiness Radha Swami. She was raised in a Krishna conscious home where she learned all different arts of the Vedas like Ayurveda, astrology, palmistry, etc. And she's always been very interested in the human body, and therefore she studied biomedical science and neuroscience at university. But on completing her degree, she wasn't very satisfied with what she had learned there, and she didn't know if she could really trust the information. So she wanted to study it from a Krishna conscious perspective, and therefore she embarked on a 3-year degree to study Ayurveda. With this being said, she wanted to give more credibility to the Sanskrit texts by supporting them with science. So she continued her passion for education and completed a diploma in nutritional therapy, has fully qualified as a functional medicine practitioner, is a yoga teacher, and is completing a plant-based chef's course. As she had taken time to focus on raising her children, she is now slowly returning to clinical practice and is eager to share her knowledge with the wider devotional community. She specializes in root cause medicine and working on the foundational pillars of health. She has treated hundreds of patients over the years and delivered numerous seminars. She's passionate about helping women to find a balance in their spiritual lives to support them emotionally and physically. So in today's talk, she's going to specifically focus on the importance of sleep, diet, and stress management. And with that, I'll hand over to her. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Tara, for my introduction, and thank you for allowing me to be here and giving me this most amazing platform by which to share whatever I have learned over the last few years, and hope that it may help the wider devotional community. As Tara mentioned, I have been living near Bhaktivedanta Manor for the last 20 years, and I have delivered a number of seminars to the community there. And over time, as we traveled to different temples across the world, we would often do small Ayurvedic seminars where I went. But for me, this is just such an amazing opportunity to be able to reach so many of our Vaishnavi community in the hope that they can learn some of the very simple, basic, foundational principles that Ayurveda offers us so that we can manage not only our health, but I know how as women, we are often the support and the stability of so many other people, whether it is our partners, our children, our parents, or our local community. We kind of take it upon ourselves to be the carer, the nurturer, and the giver. And I just feel that these pearls and wisdoms that Krishna shared through the Ayurvedic knowledge is very simple, and it can be understood by all of us. So today is my humble attempt to try and give you some basic introductory points into Ayurvedic medicine and how we can actually apply that in our life. So please, if you have questions, feel free to post them on the chat where I'll keep an eye, and I'll give some time towards the end to answer your questions. So again, thank you so much for this opportunity. So let's begin. Ayurveda, what is Ayurveda? Where does it come from? It's something that's often heard when we are in the temple and we talk about health. people will say, I want to go to an Ayurvedic practitioner. I want to try Ayurveda. So what is Ayurveda? Where does it come from? Ayurveda, the word in itself, means the science, Veda, which is science, knowledge, and Ayu, which means life. So it's the science of life. And I think in the modern world, Ayurveda has been known as a medical system. It's become known as a medicinal system from the ancient Indian texts or the Indian subcontinent. But in some essence, I feel that is a bit of disservice to the concept of Ayurveda, because Ayurveda is far more than that. It is beyond that. It is, in fact, the way that we are supposed to live. It is everything and anything that you need to know about life, about your daily habits, about having children, about your code of conduct, about adaptability to the environments around you. And the medical part is actually one small aspect of the larger Ayurvedic system. And it tends to be the aspect that has been widely propagated, but it's very important to understand that there's a whole lot more to Ayurveda. So when as devotees we come into the beautiful understanding of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, it's very common that we want to now start to live our life in that way. We want to try and eat, sleep, follow the guidelines that we believe Krishna has enunciated for us. And the reason for that would be because we have so much faith in the philosophical aspects. We read the ancient texts, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, we hear about Krishna's pastimes. If you are somebody who is fond of deity worship, then the entire routine that Krishna has in the morning is in fact Ayurveda. The way that he wakes up, he brushes his teeth, the drinks that he is offered, the way that he bathes, the oil, the entire process is Ayurveda. So it's very common that people want to now learn more about this. Now, where does Ayurveda come from? Ayurveda has been documented in certain classical Sanskrit texts, but as we know, a lot of knowledge was predominantly established across the globe before it was necessarily documented in certain texts that we have. So Ayurveda would be synonymous with the beginning of creation. It would be the daily habitual practices that have been followed from time immemorial. So whenever you read anything Vedic, scriptural, and it's always blended and threaded within that. As I mentioned, the times to wake up, the times to sleep, the way somebody would organize a meal, the way you would eat. If you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll see that when they speak of Mahaprabhu and his daily meals, it's infiltrated with Ayurvedic foods and herbs within the natural diet. It's not separated as a separate medical system. So Ayurveda comes from Krishna. It is known as an Upaved. It's a sub-Ved in the same way that we have astrology and we have the other different arts that allow us to live in this material world. And it covers a lot of the aspects that we would use on a daily basis. So today, as part of this short introductory seminar, I want to explain some of those foundational principles and how we can apply them in our life and how we can use them to stay strong and healthy. So when we think of Ayurveda, I think the best way to understand it is it's a set of principles. It's not a set of rules. So it doesn't say everybody should wake up at this hour, everybody should eat this many grams of protein, everybody should sleep at this particular time. It is a very individual and a very flexible science. And what it teaches us is how to understand our physical body in the world around us. So if today we have people joining from across the globe, so some of you may be sitting in a very hot room with a fan on, with cotton clothing, drinking cool liquids. And some of you may be sitting with a hat and a scarf and a hot tea with a blanket. And some of you, it may be morning. For some of you, it may be evening. So the same rules are really not going to apply to each one of us. It's really going to be dependent on what is going on within our body and also external to our body. So the first thing and the very first principle of Ayurveda that's really important to try and understand is the concept of the elements. Now, the reason we understand the concept of the elements is because once you start to appreciate how the 5 different elements come together to form what we know as the doshas, we can now apply this knowledge to pretty much everything. So let me give you an example. The entire world has been made up of 5 different elements, which you would all be familiar with: air, ether, water, earth, and fire. Now, these 5 elements are present, whether it be in a plant, whether it be in a fruit or a vegetable, and whether it be in the environment, and also within us as human beings. All of these 5 elements have important qualities, and that's really important to know. There's no one quality that's better than the other. They work in unity to help us grow, develop, function, and think. So the lighter elements, which are of air and ether, these 2 lighter elements combine together, and they're known as the Vata dosha. So air and ether make what we know as Vata. And then we have water and fire, which makes Pitta. And then finally, we have earth and water, which make Kapha. Now, many of you may be familiar with these 3 words: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Now, when we were conceived, the time that we were conceived in our mother's womb, depending on which of those 5 elements was in predominance, along with the seed, along with the environment in the mother's womb, along with the diet that she ate, we developed our own innate balance of these 5 elements. Now, that is going to be different in each one of us. Some of us may have a predominance of the air and ether element. Some of us may have a predominance of the water and earth element. And this is what starts to constitute as our personal bodily prakriti. Prakriti meaning our constitution. Now, those elements will affect the way that our skin is formed, the way that our organs were formed, the way that our hair is, because it depends on the quality of the different elements that we had at the time we were conceived. Now, once we start to understand these 5 different elements and how they come together as the doshas, we can start to understand which qualities we may innately be predominant in. So let me introduce those concepts. If we think of Vata, I've already mentioned that it's air and ether. So have a little think. What kind of qualities do you think would be predominant in an item, in a person, in an environment that is dominant in Vata? It's light, it's airy, it's rough. So Vata dosha is generally represented by lightness, is represented by coolness. If we think of air and ether, it's cool, it's coolness. If you think of air and ether, it's not grounded, it's very fluctuating, it's erratic, but at the same time, it's flexible. So now let's start to put that into a person and how that person may come across. This will be the doshas that affect us not only physically, but they will affect us emotionally. And actually, that's something in Ayurveda I find is a very, very unique aspect that modern science is only now beginning to understand. So as Tara mentioned, I have a background which started in Western medicine with biomedical sciences and understanding of the brain and the nervous system. And now it is only within the last 5 to 10 years, they've started to understand how what we put in our body, our diet, our physical body can actually manifest in our mental health. I have a lot of clients that come to me who have emotional, mental disturbances, and they're made to feel in some way as if there's something mentally wrong with them. But that is not the case. You can manifest an emotional disturbance purely based upon your physical imbalances. And sometimes this can be a really important point to understand. We know about hormones. We know that you might be coming up to your menstrual cycle and you start to develop all these different emotional moods. Sometimes women know that their menstrual cycle is going to begin because the day before they start crying about small things. And then they look at the calendar and they think, oh, is it the time of the month? So the mood, the emotional aspects are coming as a result of physical bodily changes. And this can also happen during the time of menopause. I've seen this a lot in women. They have stopped their cycles, so they are no longer bleeding, and therefore they're not recollecting this is the time of my monthly cycle. But the hormonal changes are still continually ongoing in the body. And so they have days where they might feel irritated, they might feel angry, they may feel less able to absorb some of the tasks that they're expected to do on a daily basis. So really important to understand that the doshas I'm speaking about are not only manifested physically, but they are manifested emotionally. And it's sometimes as mothers, this can be a really useful tool for us to get to know our children. And when we have more than one child, I find that's a really wonderful example of how each child and their unique characteristics, even though the parental home can be the same, the parents can be the same, can actually come through in the child. And you start to assess them on their doshic balances. And it can be really useful for a parent to know this about their child, because then if their child is sick or unwell, immediately their mind is going to rebalance of those doshic types or the characteristics. And I'll talk about this in a little bit of time, and specifically to how we can notice what are the imbalances within each of us. So as I was talking about Vata, Vata would present itself physically with dryness. So a Vata dominant person tends to be quite slim, because if you think about the dominance of the elements, there's no heaviness and earthiness. So they're quite thin built, their bones will be quite light. And the way you can often look at bones is from wrists. If you look at the wrist of a person is where you see the bone, as opposed to the physical body. People can have weight that's up or down, but you can see the bone structure. And a Vata person will be generally slimmer and have smaller bones. Their skin will be slightly drier. It may even be thinner. So when I say thin skin, you might be able to see the veins below their skin. You might be able to see color temperature change. So when they get flushed or embarrassed, or when they've just exercised, their faces might go really pink, or you can really see the change in their body temperature. So Vata is very dry skin. So when it's cold weather or generally in the year, they notice they have more cracked skin. They might need to apply more moisturizer on a regular basis. They also tend to have lightness when it comes to their mental energy. And what that means is that sometimes they might take on a lot. So they're very enthusiastic. Urja, which is in Sanskrit, the word for enthusiasm, is very prominent in Vata, the utsaha that they have. They're very into, I would like to be involved in this. They're always putting their hand up and being the person in the ashram probably that's ready to go. They are willing to help everyone. But then when it comes down to it, and when they really have to put it into practice, sometimes it doesn't quite manifest, because a lot of it is in the head and a lot of it is in the desire. But they struggle with stability. They struggle with routine. They struggle with always carrying out all of those things that genuinely want to do. And so they're very fragile and they're very erratic. Now that will present itself also in a daily basis. So for example, one day they might have a very strong digestive system. They're starving. They constantly want to eat. And then the next day they haven't eaten 6-7 hours. They don't even notice, because their digestive fire is known as Vishama Agni. Vishama Agni means it's sometimes strong, sometimes weak. So I hope you can see the kind of qualities we are now associating with Vata dominance. There's a lightness, not only physically, but mentally. There's a dryness. Again, we spoke about the skin, but this dryness can actually be internal. So internal dryness can manifest with constipation. Now, one of the things that I have discussed for 20 years in clinic is bowel movements. The questions you will get asked in my clinic are probably very different to what your GP will ask you. I want to know how often you go to the toilet, the consistency of your bowel movements, whether there's a smell, whether there's undigested matter. So all of the embarrassment is left at the door when you walk in. But it's very important. It is essential to actually evaluate your bowel movement. So we will talk about that when we talk about the diet. But I want you to already start thinking about these things. Are you somebody that is naturally quite constipated? Are you somebody naturally that maybe misses a day to go to the toilet or struggles to have good quality bowel movements? This is a sign. This is a sign of what is happening internally. And so that can be very common in a Vata dominant person. So we have the dryness of the skin externally, the dryness of the hair, we have the dryness internally. We also have the lightness in their mind. Physically, they're not so heavy. We also have the fact that they can be quite erratic. They can have days where they're very happy, and then there may be days where they're very sad and they're very moody, and there may be days when they're very energetic, but then there are also days when they're very tired. So this is representing Vata. Some of the common health concerns that we get with Vata is joint pains. So when you twist your wrists or your ankles and you hear a crack or that click, that's signs that there is now getting a little bit of imbalance in this Vata dosha, that the Vata is probably not as balanced as it could be. So pains, headaches, backaches, any kind of pain is Vata predominance. Like I mentioned about the bowels, that's constipation is Vata predominance. And in this way, there are a number of health conditions that we associate with Vata. Then we move on to Pitta. So what is the qualities of Pitta? The qualities of Pitta are fire and water. Now, some of you may already be thinking about your local community members. You'll be thinking about your family members as I talk about the different doshas. So Pitta is somebody who's very fiery, and you'll find they often tend to be the leaders. So the devotees that are very strong in the fire element, they like to take control of a situation. They're very intelligent because fire is synonymous with Agni. Now, this Agni that we talk about is often thought of as being just in the stomach, but Agni, according to Ayurveda, is not just the digestive factor. Agni is within every single cell. Agni is within our eyes. It's what allows us to perceive information from the external world and then to transform it and understand it in our brains. That's done through Agni. So people who have Agni imbalances may develop eye disorders because the Agni within the eye is not functioning as well. So we have Agni, which is the digestive fire. So if you think of a Pitta dominant person, what do you think their digestion is going to be like? A Pitta dominant person is going to have a strong, voracious digestive fire. They eat something and it is digested away. So for us women, often it's that Mataji sitting next to us with a huge plate of prasad and the very slim frame, and she can just eat everything and have no problems digesting it, while we might sit there with a small little plate eyeing the food, and that's enough to fill us up. So Pitta dominant people, very energetic. They have the most amazing metabolic rate in the body. So what I mean by metabolism is that the conversion rate is brilliant. You know, it's not only about eating, we need to convert the food, right? We don't want to just have the food sitting in our stomachs. So they need the food and they also convert it well. And these are my friends that I feel so, I feel sorry for on fasting days. So when we have those vrats that last from morning till night, and there are my Pitta friends, and I can see the agitation, the difficulty they're having. When it's coming towards the end of breaking fast, it's best to probably stay a few meters away from them because they just need that food to start to function again. And that is just their body. And this is why sometimes I think if we know this, then we won't push ourselves, even when it's fasting or when there's certain things in our, we'll acknowledge it's not that I have less of self-control. It's not that I don't have the same willpower as the other person, but my body is reacting differently. My body is demanding food and energy. My blood sugar levels are dropping. Now in Western terminology, we'll understand that your blood sugar level drops. It can affect your nervous system. You can no longer function optimally because there's no sugar available for your energy levels. So the Pitta body type is very strong digestion. They can eat and digest everything. But then on the other hand, they can also struggle with digestive issues. They can be more prone to having looser bowel movements. If they have looser bowel movements, that can sometimes mean that the food is just passing through their gut. It's not being absorbed properly. If we're eating food, but it's not being absorbed, that can also lead to malnutrition in the bodily dhatus and doshas, and that can lead to weakness, and we need to eat a greater amount of food to actually be able to absorb the food. So having diarrhea or loose stool is not recommended, and it's something you want to keep an eye on, that you have healthy, well-formed bowel movements. So a Pitta body type is somebody that has more often, they'll have bowel function, they have a strong digestive fire. As I mentioned, they have a very strong mind, they're very intelligent, they're very focused. They tend to be the ones that are very ambitious, the ones that are the leaders to go out there. They tend to be quite fearless. They're not affected by what's going on around them. They're very focused on what they need to do, and they go out and they do it. They also tend to be less affected by what other people think of them. They may be affected when someone criticizes them. They don't like to be criticized, but they are not the kind of person that will sit and think about it and let it affect them. Whereas a Vata person will get quite affected by criticism from other people. It will bother them for a long time, and it may actually even affect the way that they do things. So Pitta is strong-minded, intelligent, they have a lot of heat in their body. So they're the ones that you will see in t-shirts when it's sort of, in the UK, we would call it like sort of autumn weather. It's not hot, but they can't wear heavy clothing. Their body they just feel uncomfortable. They perspire a lot, because the perspiration is a sign of the metabolism increasing. They may be prone to more skin-related problems. The heat in the body is often high. They may complain of heartburn issues. They may complain of pimples, heat rashes, the loose stool. These are all very common conditions with Pitta imbalance. We also have inflammation in the body. So anywhere there's redness, there's heat, and there's inflammation, that is also something that is Pitta dominance, and often Pitta imbalance. So we will discuss the difference between dosha and imbalance as well. So Pitta. So now we have Kapha. So Kapha, as I mentioned, is earth. It's the earth element, and it's the water element. So what do you think might be the qualities of a Kapha dominant? If we're thinking earth, if we're thinking water, and we've just described Vata, we've just described Pitta. So earth and water, these are heavy, these are grounded, these are emotional, nurturing qualities. So the Kapha individual, this lady will be the one who everybody goes to because they just feel immense love and immense care from these people. And immediately I can think of so many within our devotional community. The wonderful devotees at the Mana that I have seen just constantly giving love continuously to the children, to those around them, with no concern for themselves, to the point that if you actually do something for them, it makes them so uncomfortable because they are satisfied with that giving and that expression of love. So a Kapha dominant person will be a slightly heavier boned. I'm not saying they're going to be overweight. They're going to be heavier boned, slightly more solid physical structure, slightly more rounded muscles, rounded tone. Their skin is going to be oily. The earth and the water element give it this oiliness, this unctuousness to their skin. They tend not to have skin that's as thin and transparent. So when you look at their skin, it's nice and thick and nice and oily, their facial skin. Less chance of wrinkling. So for those women, you won't get wrinkles because you have nice, natural, oiled, thick skin. Kapha also represents slight slowness. So, they talk slowly. They will respond slowly, but they will take their time, but doesn't mean it won't be conducted correctly. They just like to be a bit slower in action. And they're very organized. They like things to be in routine. A Kapha person doesn't really like to leave their home comforts. They don't really like to go into new environments all the time. They enjoy being with a few people in a comfortable environment where they feel safe and they're able to express themselves in a good way. So Kapha is more heavy, stable. Some of the issues they may have is because they're not so into moving around, they might get what we call a bit alasya, a little bit lazy, don't exercise so much. They may therefore struggle with weight gain. They may struggle with some of the metabolic issues that we hear about, high increased fat in the body, high blood sugar levels in the body. They probably like to go and eat lots of sweets. That's their natural taste tendencies. They enjoy sweet food. They actually enjoy eating. The Kapha person doesn't really wait for lunchtime. You know, it's lunchtime, time for prasad. You know, it's evening, time for prasad. They like to have their prasad, and in the same way they like to have the prasad, they like to serve the prasad. So Kapha is very organized, very stable, very grounded. It's the grounded aspect that makes them very good listeners. It makes them very good advisors and mentors. And definitely within our devotional community, we see this a lot, that they tend to be the ones that people feel very comfortable to go and share their feelings with. But on the other side, even though they may not be as expressive, they're very sensitive. And I have to say personally, in my own practice, it's this category of women that I feel very concerned about. And I feel very much like I always want to check, are you okay? Because they will look after their entire family. They will give to all of those around them, and they will neglect themselves. And then as time goes on, as age goes on, the imbalance will start to present in their health. And that's when they start to not be able to do what they wanted to do, but they haven't got the help that they needed. And sometimes I've also found that in families where women are like that, people become used to it. Children become used to the mother who's always cooking and cleaning. The partner becomes used to the fact that, oh, but she's fine, she's okay. And they often get forgotten that actually they also need that care and affection from everybody else. So Kapha, strong, stable, sturdy, and organized. And I'll just add that out of all of the doshas, Kapha has the best immune system. It's the most strongest and most stable. It's able to withstand a lot of changes in the physical body. So I mentioned this because I see that sometimes in our devotional practice, it's very common that we push ourselves, be it sleeping less, be it the amount of pressure that we may put on ourselves. Now, the Kapha woman can withstand that a lot better than, say, a Vata person. A Vata individual may start to notice signs of the imbalance earlier on in life, maybe in their 30s. They'll start to notice some aches, pains, some imbalances. And a Kapha person could go on to about 50 and actually still carry on because they're more robust. They're also stronger in childbirth. They're able to give birth to children in a more comfortable manner because of the way their body structure is. So that's Kapha. So hopefully you've managed to get a little bit of insight into the three doshas. Now, again, very important to note, you're not one or the other. You're all three. And actually in Ayurveda, it's explained the best is to be samadosha. Samadosha means balanced in the doshas. But unfortunately, that's not up to us. That was up to our parents. That was up to the mother and her lifestyle and the seed qualities and her diet. There's nothing we can do about that. Interestingly, recently, there's a lot of articles that I've read on science journals, and a very interesting point that I came across, that when we have a child in our womb, the diet that we eat will affect our grandchildren's health. So just understand that. What I eat can actually affect the predisposition and the health of my grandchild. Now, if we think about that, when you're giving birth to a child, you are also creating their reproductive system. You're also creating the eggs that will be in the woman, the sperm that will be in the boy, and those qualities that you have are being passed down to that child, and then that child will pass it on to their child. And so Ayurveda takes in so much importance the way that we have children. And actually, when I was studying, because I didn't have children at that time, it was my area that I was very focused on. I really wanted to understand, what does Ayurveda say about childbirth? What does our Ayurveda say about fertility? How do we ensure we do the right things when it comes to having children? And even now, I remember between my husband and I, we would be checking the Ayurvedic text in Sanskrit. He's familiar with all of the samskaras, so he was looking at all the rituals and the samskaras and the rites, and I would be finding all the herbs he would say, what does this herb mean? And I'll be like, oh, this is what I think it is. And we were calling India, trying to get herbs delivered. And we really didn't have anyone we could call and say, is this the right thing? Are we doing the right thing? It was literally like we were pulling out of the text and trying to bring together the knowledge that we had in doing the best for having children. But I am fascinated by the amount of detail that is within the Ayurvedic text. And to think that in the modern day age, I mean, it just baffles me, the concept that somebody can just go to the partner and say, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant. Oh, by the way, I'm pregnant. We are just giving birth to the next generation. It is such a detailed scientific process to ensure that you have good, healthy progeny. And Ayurveda details all of that. So with the understanding of these doshas, we have to understand that we are all three, but we have a difference in the balance. So yes, it is absolutely the best to have all three in equal balance, but that might not be the case for you or for me. So when we start to think, okay, I think I'm a predominant Vata. I have very Vata-like characteristics, but I think I'm also Pitta. So 2 doshas is quite common. To have a constitution based on 2 predominant doshas is the most common that I find. It's actually even more rarer to have 1 dominance. So 3 is ideal, 2 is the most common, and 1 happens, but it's quite rare. Now, the other thing to remember is we are not trying, if I'm a Vata Pitta, I am not trying to become a Vata Pitta Kapha imbalance. If I bring my Vata Pitta into equal proportions and bring the Kapha up, I will start to notice ill health. So very, very important that you remember, you have to balance yourself in your particular constitutional balance. And this is what makes Ayurveda so unique and so personalized and so individual. The same thing does not work for every person. It's very personalized. So start to think, what do you think your dominant doshas are? And what do you think maybe the signs of imbalance? You see, we are very concerned with imbalance. And Ayurveda actually explains that the signs of imbalance are very obvious, actually. You might start to notice diet-wise that you get a bit of bloating after you've eaten. Like I mentioned, the stool might not be as well formed. But in modern society, what happens is we ignore it. We think, oh, it's nothing, it'll go. And then when we leave it, we might use a short-term remedy to try and stop it. We notice some dry skin, we might get a cream from the doctor, oh, it's gone. Or we notice some digestive problems, some heartburn, we might pop an antacid or something to help us with the burning. But what we haven't done is actually address the cause of the imbalance. And then what will happen after those initial stages of imbalance, the imbalance gets greater within the body. And as it gets greater, the symptoms become more obvious. And then slowly this will start to manifest in disease. So it's very important that we start to think, okay, have I got signs of imbalance? And if I have signs of imbalance, which of the doshas is it pointing towards? And once I think of the doshas it's pointing towards, what can I do to bring myself back into a state of balance? And I think balance is probably the key word in Ayurveda. It's how do I find my balance? And your balance is going to change. If the season's outside, if it's hot weather, the diet and lifestyle is going to be different to keep you in balance. If it's cold outside, your diet and lifestyle is going to be different, right? It's all about finding the balance. If you're a child, if you're within the ages of 20 to 25, your bodily dosha, Ayurveda explains, is predominant in Kapha. If we think about childhood, it's a nurturing time. A child, you hear stories that the mother dropped the baby. The mother dropped the baby, but the baby was fine. The mother might have got hurt, but the baby was fine. Why? Because it's a Kapha dominant phase of life. Children often have coughs and colds. They often have very Kapha dominant symptoms. They like to sleep more. And if you have a child that does not sleep as much, that's signs that this child may be dominant in Vata or in Pitta. As you enter middle age, this is the time when we have to be the most active. It's the time when we make a family. It's the time when we make our careers. It's the time when we are out there trying to do something in our life. That's a Pitta dominant time. We need the fire energy. We need the energy to think. We need the energy to metabolize. So Pitta is dominant. And then as we get older, from 60 onwards, it's a Vata dominant time. So in this way, the practices that will be applicable in your 60s is not going to be the same as when you were 20. Sometimes women are in their 40s and they come to me and say, I can't eat the way I used to eat. Well, because your body is not what it used to be when you were 20. Think of all the things that you have done on a daily basis, the amount of food you've put in your system, the amount of chemicals we've been subjected to. Our body is now going to be affected by that. So Ayurveda is really about understanding what is the climate around you, what is your natural tendencies, and which part of life are you within, what are the seasons like. Even countries have different doshic balances. You'll go to a country and your body just feels lovely, perfect, amazing. You feel so well. And then sometimes you go to a country and you just feel very sluggish. Some people, they don't like the humid environment. That would be more of a Kapha dominant person. They feel bloated. They feel their joints are swollen because their body is now adjusting to a new environment. So balance is key. As we were talking about health, let's discuss, what does Ayurveda define as health? What is a healthy person? So Ayurveda explains in this verse what it means to be healthy. So it says, sama doshaha. So we've talked about dosha. Sama doshaha, sama agnishcha, sama dhatu malakriyaha, prasan atma indriya manaha, swasta iti abhidhiyate. So what does that translate as? And when you hear these verses, you see the wisdom that was infiltrated in Ayurveda, which modern sciences are slowly beginning to recognize. Sama doshaha, the balance of your bodily doshas. And as I mentioned, your specific balance. So you need to keep your doshas in balance. Sama agnishcha, you need to keep the agni within the body balanced. If you have poor metabolism, this is the root cause of disease. If we think about our thoughts even, thoughts can go on to become disease if we do not digest thoughts properly. If we constantly regurgitate something somebody has said to us, if we constantly ponder upon things that we have started to perceive as reality, that creates disease. That's poor digestion of thoughts. So the thoughts need to be well digested. The food needs to be well digested. And then that food needs to have gone into every cell in your body and be well digested. So Agni is very important. Sama dhatu are the tissues of the body, so the organs of the body. Are they balanced? Are they healthy? Is your heart functioning properly? Is your liver functioning properly? And then malakriha, like I mentioned, we talk about bowel movements a lot in my clinic, but we actually talk about all the mala, all the waste products. If we are not getting rid of waste products properly, then this is a sign that there is an imbalance somewhere. So we can look at our hair. The hair is actually known as the byproduct of asti dhatu, the bone tissue of the body. So if we have imbalance within our hair, this is an indication that there may be an imbalance somewhere else within the body. And what I have found is people start to think of hair condition or skin problem. They think of it as a disease. It is not a disease. And actually, Ayurveda is not even interested in a name of a disease. It is so common for people to say, I have arthritis, I have diabetes, I have an autoimmune disorder. But actually, we should not correlate ourselves with an illness. What we actually have is an imbalance. And this imbalance is manifesting as a set of symptoms. So if you are suffering with hair loss, and this is a common modern day health problem, you need to go backtrack. Where are the imbalances lying? Is it in the diet? Is it what I'm putting in my body? Is it what I'm digesting? Is it some toxins within the system? So hair. So in this way, the dhatus and the mala, the sweat, is your sweat smelly? Is your nails healthy? We talk about nails that break quickly or nails that are strong. All of these are signs that everything is functioning well. And then prasanna atma, actually having a pleasant atma, a pleasant spirit. Indriya manaha, your senses and your mind. This is what Ayurveda considers healthy. So isn't that quite beautiful? It's not about the body only. It is about a combination of all of these elements that bring us into a state of good health. So now what I think it would be good for the last, we have 15, 20 minutes, I'm just going to talk a little bit about those points that I've mentioned, which is diet, sleep, stress, and how these are important for us to stay healthy. And now that I've introduced the doshic concept, I will bring them in to each of these factors, and hopefully you can start to think about how you might be personally affected by this. Before I start, I just want to explain that, again, with the Western and with the interest in Ayurveda being propagated on social media and amongst practitioners who maybe haven't studied from the Sanskrit texts, I find there is a very common misunderstanding of Ayurveda. And that misunderstanding is, I am a Pitta, therefore I have a Pitta diet and I have a Pitta lifestyle. No. Or I am a Vata, I have a Vata diet. Now I just want you to think, go back into, if you've ever been to India, go to a house in India and think about the number of people that may be living in that house. I mean, I have visited family members, there may be 40 to 50 people living in one family. Imagine if the cook was catering to every single person's doshic constitution. That would mean that the cook would have to serve a different meal to maybe 10, 15 of those individuals within the house. So that in itself we can see is not logical. So what Ayurveda actually talks about is if you follow the daily routine, the seasonal routine, you can protect yourself from having any imbalances. So as I've already explained, we have the doshas. We all have a different level of each of these three doshas as our constitution. And the key is to keep that in balance. If we keep that in balance, we will not develop ill health. If one of those doshas go out of their natural state of balance, we will start to notice signs of ill health. At that point, you adopt the diet and lifestyle practice of the dosha that is imbalanced. Make sense? So I might be Kapha Pitta, but I start to get a headache, or I start to notice dryness. The dosha that's becoming imbalanced in my system is Vata. I don't follow a Kapha Pitta diet. I will need to follow a Vata diet. So that is what we know as Vikruti. So the idea of following a Pitta, Kapha or Vata diet is not true Ayurveda. This is a very narrowed version of Ayurveda. And actually what Ayurveda explains is follow the seasonal and daily routine and you will not become imbalanced. So let's talk a little bit about the daily routine that Ayurveda talks about. So Ayurveda explains the waking time. And it explains that we should be waking in Brahma Muhurta. So what is Brahma Muhurta? It doesn't say 5 o'clock. It doesn't say 7 o'clock. The reason it doesn't say that is because it will be different based upon where you live. It'll be different depending on the time of year. So around 40 minutes before sunrise, that is the time we should be waking up. Now, again, this is very important to emphasize. This is for a healthy human being. If you are going through states of ill health, if you have imbalances within the body, then you would need to change that. So we're talking about the healthy person, 40 minutes before sunrise. Why? Because this is the time that is explained to be for the Brahmas, for the Devatas, for the spiritual activities. So you wake up in the morning and the environment around you is conducive for those activities such as meditation, such as prayer, such as introspection. There are people that are running global companies who often say, the most productive work I get done is in those very early hours in the morning. And I can do more work in that time than my entire day. Because the energetic system of the planet is such, it is conducive for mental, emotional thoughts and thinking. It's a very calm environment. So 40 minutes before sunrise, one should wake up. Now, what should you do when you wake up? Ayurveda talks about drinking water. So the drinking of water, again, I think it's beautiful. It is not mentioned 6 liters, 2 liters, 1 liter. It is actually mentioned Anjali. So an Anjali is your 2 palms as they come together. That is 1 Anjali. Okay. Now my palm is actually going to hold different water to a child, right? They will have less. And if I remember correctly now off the top of my head, 6 Anjalis is what we should be drinking in the morning. So that might be 1.5 liters actually. I would say about 250 ml is about probably what one of my Anjalis is. So if I say 6, that's about 1.5. But can you see it's individual, which is such a beautiful thing about Ayurveda. We use our body parts to measure what is suitable for us. But I will verify that and put it back. But from my memory, it's 6. So when we have water in the morning, it actually helps to clean and detoxify and clear all the mala. Detoxification is so essential for a healthy body. And I have not gone into the science side of this. I could talk about this from a scientific viewpoint for a long time. When we are functioning in our body, our digestive system has to expel the toxins. If the toxins are not expelled from our body, they get reabsorbed into our system. When they get reabsorbed into our system, this can create dysfunction on many levels. So for example, hormonal imbalances can often be not because you are not producing hormones optimally, but because you are reabsorbing hormones that need to be excreted from the body. So by drinking plenty of water in the morning, it allows the body to become free and clean of toxins. Then you are meant to have a bowel movement. Again, I come from an Indian family. And so in my family, we openly talked about bowel movements. You know, if somebody didn't go to the toilet in the morning, it was as if it was the end of the world. You know, I didn't have a bowel movement this morning. We all heard about it. You know, we'd be hearing about it for hours until it actually happened. And there was actually a film made in India, in Bollywood, and by one of the most well-known actors, very famous actor. I would call him like the Robert De Niro of Indian Bollywood films. And he did a whole movie, and the topic was constipation, how he couldn't go to the toilet. So it's a very openly talked about topic in India. And I think it's actually wonderful because in the Western world, it's a very private thing that you don't talk about. And if you ask people, they'll be like, no, it's fine. My bowel movements are fine. Well, constipation actually can be the root cause of disease. And so before we even start going to a doctor, before we even start thinking about all these pharmaceutical medications, are you going to the toilet? And are you going in the morning? Are you going first thing? Because if you're cleaning your system and you're having a bowel movement, this tells me so much. It tells me your digestive system is working. It tells me you've eliminated toxins from the body. The waste products are being released. And that brings lightness. It brings lightness and it brings good digestion for the next meal. So the first thing you do is drink the water. The second thing you will do is go to the toilet and make sure you've had bowel movements. After that, it's suggested you do cleaning. So you clean your, in the traditional Ayurvedic routine, you actually clean all your senses. So you put oils in your nose, you put oils in your ears, you put drops in your eyes, you do gargling in the mouth, the teeth. It's a very systematic process. It's not simply brush your teeth in the shower out. It takes time to make sure you've oleated and cleansed all of your senses. And then you're actually suggested you have a bit of movement in the morning. So again, in the Western culture, sometimes people wake up, and from the time they wake up to the time they're in their office or at their desk, maybe just 45 minutes. And in that time, they expect to have hunger, they expect to have gone to the toilet, they expect to have energy, but you haven't even given your body the time to wake up. So you need to wake up, you need to go to the toilet, you need to do your cleaning routine, and you need to do some movement. This movement can be from walking, from doing yoga stretches, but there needs to be some physical movement in the body to get the circulation going. So when we have a good morning routine, it really can help support a good nighttime sleep. So we have different hormones and neurotransmitters that are released, and the morning sunlight, which penetrates through our eyes, it tells our brain it's daytime. So it's very important to have darkness and light. So sometimes in the evening, people are looking at screens or they have bright lights on. It actually confuses the brain from understanding what is day and what is night, which is why common lifestyle disorders are so prominent now. People have sleep issues. People either can't get to sleep or they wake up in the middle of the night and they wake up tired. So really important first thing in the morning is you open your curtains. If you have bright, you actually step outside. You breathe in the oxygen that is outside. You let the light stimulate your eyes, the sun reach your body. This is a very important part of waking up in the morning. And now science is saying the same thing. Quite late, Toron, but they're still admitting it now. You know, you have to go outside You have to look at the light and you have to wake your body up. So do a bit of exercise. Now, I completely understand that the routine I am offering may not be practical for everybody. If you're running a family, if you're running a temple, if you've got preaching programs, but this is just to explain the detail that is offered. Then once you have done your routine, you've done some exercise, you're meant to apply oil to your body. Now, in the West, again, we think of massage as a luxury. And in the Eastern countries, I've noticed this, whether it's China, whether it's Hong Kong, Japan, Malaysia, massage is an essential part of well-being. It is something that you do to stay in good health. Because when you massage the body, it helps to lubricate the external skin. And the skin is actually what we consider like a big mouth. It's the same as what we eat, but it just gets absorbed directly into your blood. And so by using massage oils, it can help to detoxify the body. It can help to break up any toxins that are lurking in any part and bring it into the stomach so that it can be excreted out through bowel movements. And it helps to bring luster, brightness. It helps to bring energy, and it's very pleasing to the body. So you can do self-massage every day with warm oil, and then you have a bath. So this is just the morning before we've even gone downstairs to our temple room. So now we've done the mental, external, we've done our cleaning. We now would enter into the temple room and you would do your achaman. So why do we do achaman? Because we are purifying our internal body now. We've purified our external body. We've done the movement. We're getting into physically good health. And now we use the mantras that are infiltrated in the water, because water takes on the energetics of mantra. And by sipping the water, we are now purifying our internal body. And this then sets us in the mood for meditation. So this is when you would now begin your morning meditation practice, whether that is your chanting, whether that is your waking up of your deities, whether that is your silent meditation, whatever practice you choose to follow. So can you see how the morning has allowed you to get to the point that you're now able to sit and focus in meditation properly? Sometimes people are chanting, they're yawning, they need to go to the bathroom in the middle, their body's aching, they're twisting their necks and they're doing their shoulders, in the middle of their chanting. But you've done that. You've done it all in the right time. And now your body is able to be stable and settled. And then after that, you've done your routine, you would then go and have your morning meal. So that would be the morning, simply the morning. And it's what you start to understand, which bits can I use, which bits can I leave, how can I make this work in my current lifestyle? But this is how Ayurveda talks about maintenance. If we do all of these things, then ill health will not come to us. And then we will not be in the need of doctors and medications and prescriptions, etc. So that's the morning routine. And now I want to talk a little bit about diet, because diet is very important, but I'm only going to touch upon it. And as you know, this is just really an introductory session, and I'm more than happy to do more on specific topics. So whichever topics are of most interest, please contact the organizers and we can arrange for those topics to be done in greater depth. So digestion is so essential for many reasons. Firstly, it is our source of energy to our physical body. And Ayurveda gives a lot of emphasis not just to what we are eating, but how we were eating and when we are eating. So in the temples, it's beautiful that so much of this is already incorporated, such as using our fingers, not using utensils. Why? Why do we use our fingers? Because it allows the brain time to function. What is the temperature of the food? What food is coming? If you think about using a knife and a fork, you could be on the mobile phone, you could be hearing a lecture, you could be looking at the Zoom, and you could be eating because you're actually not even looking at your plate. Now, if you're not looking at your plate, there is a dysfunction between the brain and the body. The brain is actually a very smart device, but it needs our help. If we are not giving it the right signs about what's going to come, it's not going to be able to just understand it. It's not going to just assume, oh, I know that there is a rasgulla on the plate, or I know that there is dal and rice on the plate. No, there's a process. And the process actually begins with smell. So there's something known as the cephalic response of digestion. And people think digestion is when we sit down to eat a meal. But actually digestion is from the time we start to smell the food, smell the prasad, The prasad, the smell triggers chemicals in the brain to tell us to start to release the digestive juices. So what happens today is there are a lot of people that are not digesting their food properly. And because of that, it is having a lot of health problems because they're not digesting. And it's not always about having the perfect clean diet. Sometimes, how are you eating? Are you eating rushing out the door? Are you eating standing up? Are you eating and talking? I know when I go to the temple, sometimes it's been, okay, we're gonna eat, but there are so many, and everyone's talking. So if you're talking too much while you're eating, actually this can hinder your digestive process because the brain wants to focus on the meal. And in the way we present our food so beautifully, we have like a thali where there's different vegetables and there's roti and there's rice. We actually have to think, don't we? We have to think, which sabji do I want with this mouthful? Which rice am I going to mix? And the brain is actually functioning and taking in, absorbing all this information. And as it absorbs all this information, the juices in our digestive system are released. And as the juices are released, then when the food comes, it can break that food down optimally. So how we eat is really important. Ayurveda speaks about eating when you're upset, eating when you're angry, and it tells us to avoid meals when we're emotionally disturbed. Now, when you're emotionally disturbed, it's going to impact those digestive juices that are released, and it will mean that the food will not be released optimally. It might mean we overeat. It might mean we undereat. There's so many things that can happen when you're emotionally affected. And all of this can then go on to lead to ill health afterwards. So what's your mood when you're eating? This is why we offer prayer before we sit and observe prasadam. When we offer prayer, it allows our minds to be connected to now we are going to receive food. So eating in a peaceful environment, eating in a non-emotional state, eating in a calm, seated meal. Now, for some of you mothers, I know for me, this was for some time, meaning that I don't eat when the kids are around. Because if the children are there, I can feel my heart rate, I can feel my nervous system. And it's just what I need to do in order to be able to eat properly. I need to have quiet so I can chew, so I can think. Chewing food is also important. We're so used to just eating and gulping. If you think about chewing, it's the first part of the digestive system and it's the only part of the digestive system we have control over. It's the only part, is how we chew. So chewing the food to small pieces, literally so it's like liquid in your mouth, and then swallowing helps the stomach to have less work to do and to be able to digest optimally. So chewing your food optimally, sitting in a peaceful environment, and really being focused on your meal is all very important. And then Ayurveda talks about the balance of the different tastes, and it talks about how the order in which we would eat. But I will save that for another session. Then we talk about with digestion, drinking. Let me talk about the drinking of water, which is a very common question that I hear. When do you drink water? So Ayurveda explains that water should be drunk mainly away from meals. So as we know, we've already had that large quantity of water in the morning, and we have water in between meals. Now, a meal should be thought of as being divided into 4 portions. Half of your meal should be solid food. So that could be whatever you've chosen to eat, potatoes, whatever, solid food, half of your meal is solid. A quarter is liquid. So that could be soup, it could be water, it could be the vegetables, it could be whatever. So if you've got a dry meal, which is predominantly lacking in moisture, you might drink more liquids. But if you've had a very liquidy meal, then you don't want to add a lot of liquid. And then a quarter of the stomach is left empty. And the emptiness is so that your stomach can churn the food. The stomach is like a blender. It's blending the food. Now, if you've overeaten, what can happen is it's often the common cause of acid reflux. It's the common cause of indigestion because we have not allowed enough space for the food to nicely move around and get digested. So it's really important to make sure water is had in the right quantity and mainly away from meals. The other thing we want to do is not eat too fast, not eat too slow. So you're eating in a well-balanced pace. And as I mentioned, that you're chewing your food properly. So that's to do with the basic questions of digestion. I will take questions in 5 minutes. I'm going to start going through all the questions. So let me think what else would be relevant for the digestion. So making sure we have a well-balanced meal. How do you feel after you've eaten? Do you feel sleepy? If you're feeling sleepy, then the meal was not optimally digested. Do you feel bloated? Do you feel acidic? Do you feel energetic? If you feel energetic, that meal was right for you. And that's signs. Again, these are the signs that we can look at on a daily basis to ensure that the things that we are doing are keeping us in good health. And again, I haven't mentioned a Pitta diet, a Vata diet, a Kapha diet, because if we eat well in balance, then our bodies will be well nourished. If we are releasing the digestive juices and we are absorbing the nutrients from the food, then our health will always be optimal. The key cause of ill health is actually what we know as undigested food matter, AMA, in the body. And this AMA is produced when we are not digesting optimally, and a little bit of the food is left undigested. This is another reason why we have to leave gaps between meals. At some point, it became a common trend. You have to eat every few hours or your blood sugar level is going to fall. And people got into this habit of grazing. And sometimes you'll find there are people, they don't actually eat any proper meal in the day. They've just been eating throughout the day. Our stomach is not designed like that. A cow can do that. The cow's stomach and intestines are designed in that way to eat and chew and to do that all day. But as humans, we are meant to be leaving at least a 4 to 5 hour gap between meals. There's something known as the motor migrating complex within the stomach. And it's so clever. It's actually a wave that happens within our stomach to clean it. Now, if we're constantly eating, we don't get that wave. If we don't get that wave to clean our stomach, again, the start of ill health and disease. So that's digestion. Now I'm just going to touch on sleep. I have a background in neuroscience and I find the brain absolutely fascinating, and I find sleep equally fascinating. And I want to say to all of you that if there is one thing that you can do to maintain your health, it is to ensure you get optimal sleep. It's the one thing I would put on top of any other thing I have mentioned today, and that is to get good quality optimal sleep. The reason being that when we sleep, our body is restoring itself. The brain is having a chance to, it's actually given the analogy, it's like it's vacuuming up all the debris from the body. So all the different metabolic reactions that we have, all the different foods that we've eaten, all the toxins, it needs to be cleaned up, right? We clean our house on a daily basis, we clean the kitchen, we clean. Our body needs to clean. It can only do this when we have shut down into a state of sleep. So Ayurveda allocates different doshas to different times of the day. And the Vata dosha is the time that is 2 to 6 in the morning. This is why we wake up in Vata time. When we wake up in the Vata time, it's light, it's airy, it's good for meditation, it's good for movement. And it makes sure we don't have this heavy feeling in our body. If you're waking up after 6 o'clock in the morning and you're already quite Kapha dominant, you're going to find it hard to function. You're going to find that you can't be bothered to get out of bed. 5 minutes more, 5 minutes more. So a Kapha person very, very clearly should try and get up before 6 o'clock. So you're waking up in the Kapha time. Then 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock is Kapha kala. Kapha is heavy, 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And then 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock is Pitta time. Now 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the evening is also Pitta time. So how do we translate that? Pitta is activity, Pitta is action, Pitta is doing, metabolism. Well, those things are happening in our body, but in a restful state. So now leading neurologists across the world are saying to everybody, go to bed and be asleep before 10 o'clock. If you are not asleep for that 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock window, you do not give the body the chance to replenish, rejuvenate, and replete itself. And this ties in very nicely with the Ayurvedic concept of Pitta time, 10 to 2. So if there's anything that I can say today and really say to you, if you can look after your health, I would say the one thing, do not compromise on sleep. If you're a Kapha dominant person, you can compromise for a few years, but after time, your body will have the effects. And I see this so many times in practice. I've seen it in my own health. You can have the best diet, you can have good exercise, you can have even good stress management. But if you're not sleeping, your body will show dysfunction. When a mother has a baby, often this is the time that she starts to notice she gets coughs and colds, she gets run down. And it can actually be lack of sleep, even one night they've found. Even one night's poor sleep can immediately reduce your immune system the next day. Now, we haven't spoken about the pandemic that we are currently facing, but the immune system is essential. And this, I feel, the pandemic has allowed people to just slow down. You know, if there was a prescription you could get from a doctor, it should really say sleep more. Really, sleep more, eat well, and stay hydrated. Forget all the pharmaceutical medications. Do this first. So sleep well. So when people are traveling from different countries, when they are maybe working on flights, airplanes, when their job is all, it actually affects your health to the point that night workers have been considered carcinogenic jobs that they have. If you work through the night, it increases your chances of cancer. So please sleep well. So getting yourselves into bed before 10 o'clock and then making sure that you have allowed your body to switch off. Is your room cool? Is it dark? Have you been staring at screens? Have you been talking about topics that have now triggered your brain, stimulated your brain? You should not be reading books or watching things or talking about things that are aggressive or energetic. Leave those conversations for other times. It should be a peaceful, quiet evening before you go to sleep, and then having that good quality sleep throughout the night, and then waking up in the morning, as we mentioned, 40 minutes before sunrise. And if you do this, you will start to notice very strong inner health and immunity, which will help you to resist disease. Because what is immunity? Immunity is your ability to withstand disease, and it's your ability to actually fight off disease. It's both. So one is that you don't get sick in the first place, but the fact is we are always around toxins. And the second is that we're able to actually fight it off. So that is about sleep. And then I did mention about stress. And I guess the main thing I just want to mention about stress is that when we are under a period of stress, the body is designed to deal with short-term stress. It's designed to deal with being attacked or having some threat that you need to run away from. But if that stress is continued over a long-term process, then the body functions that are designed to help alert us, they stay on for a long time. So when we are going under stress, if we think we're going to be attacked, the body doesn't need a strong immune system. The body doesn't need a good digestive system. The body definitely does not want you to go to sleep. The body definitely does not want you to reproduce and have a child. So if you're in a state of stress, and then you're expecting to digest your food, you're expecting to have a child, you're asking your body to do something that is not in correlation with the signals you are giving it. So long-term stress can be very detrimental to health, and therefore having healthy stress management techniques are very important to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. And just a couple of things that you can do to do that. In Ayurveda, we do gargling in the morning as part of the morning routine. The gargling helps to stimulate what is known as the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is a nerve that connects the brain to the body, and it stimulates this calming response. And again, it's so lovely that in Ayurveda, we have these daily habits that are having such an effect on so many levels. Singing. So we do kirtan in our home, we do arti, and we're singing in the morning every day. And singing at a loud voice actually helps, again, stimulates the vagus nerve. So when we sing kirtan, even on a physiological level, we are actually having a calming, peaceful response. Breathing. I recommend patients to, before they sit down for a meal, they do inhalation and exhalations where the exhale is longer than the inhale. So you inhale for 4 and you exhale for 8. Often when people say that, oh my gosh, I'm really nervous, they say, just breathe. And the body just does this, but the breathing is not happening. So in order to relax, it's just breathing out immediately stimulates your relaxation response. So 2 things that you can do. You can sing at the top of your voice. You can gargle, even splashing your face with cold water and breathing. These can help you immediately while you're working on the long-term stress, at least momentarily, to bring yourself into a calming state. So I will end my talk there and I will now go to questions, but hopefully that helps you understand a little bit. It helps you understand, firstly, Ayurveda is really about our bodies in the environment that we live in. This is going to be different depending on how old we are, whether we're a male or female, what the environment is around us, and all of those factors. It's about understanding the elements in the doshas, how it responds to food, how it responds to us and our minds. And it's about following a good, regular daily practice, good sleep, good diet, and good stress management. And if we do these things, we can really help to prevent ill health. So should I scroll up and have a look at these questions?
I could also ask them to you if you like.
Oh, I'd love that. That would be great.
Cool. So there were two questions where moms said that their kids sweat a lot for no reason. So they were asking what the reason for it is and if there is a solution.
Okay, so the question in itself slightly be addressed because the children sweat for no reason. So there is either a reason, which is that the parents have noticed that all of a sudden the child has started to sweat more than they may be used to, in which case we would need to look at why is that imbalance happening. But it could be the child's natural propensity to sweat. Now, sweating is a sign of Pitta. So if your child sweats a lot, you need to look and see, do they have other signs of Pitta imbalance? Is there excessive heat in the body? Are they stressed about something? Are they sweating at nighttime? Is there maybe nightmares? Is it the clothing that they're choosing to wear? Some children are very sensitive to not wearing natural fabric, so they need cotton clothing, breathable clothing. Is it the skincare products that you're using? A lot of the products sold on the market are awful for children. They have chemicals, they block the sweat glands, could be problems like that. Is there toxicity in the child's body? It's a way of toxins to be released. So what's the reason the excessive sweat is coming out? And finally, sweating is not bad. So unless it smells or it stains or there's something that's making you feel this is an imbalance, it's actually very healthy for you to sweat. And the ideas of deodorants and all of the things that we use in the West is actually one of the causes of ill health, because sweating allows the toxins to come out through the body. So I hope that helped.
Cool, wonderful. So the next question is, how do I maintain balance just before and during my menstrual cycle? I get very emotional during this time period.
Okay, so the menstrual cycle, I would say that we are going to probably do a whole session on women's health and menstruation so that we can really help balance that. But again, it will be about your bodily doshas. So if there's a lot of emotions that are being presented prior to your menstrual cycle, which you feel better, what happens in our monthly basis, our emotions are always going up and down because of the hormonal releases that we have. So one can maintain a very balanced diet, which is lower in processed foods, sugared foods. This can really help. Sometimes an imbalance in the omega fats, such as the omega-3s and 6s, can create problems. And I've seen a lot of good results with people taking evening primrose oil, which can really be productive in these emotional imbalances that one presents themselves with. Sometimes it can be a lack of minerals and vitamins within the body. And I think that it would be better that we go into that in more detail in a proper session, rather than I give certain advice which may not be applicable to this particular person here. But I would say focus on the basics of your general daily practice. Are you sleeping well? Are you hydrated? Are your bowel movements optimal? Are you stressed? If you do all of those things, you should start to notice benefits within the menstrual cycle. The other thing it's important to note is that we were supposed to take a rest during our menstruation. The idea of pushing through a menstrual cycle wasn't recommended. It's a time where our body is cleansing. It's a time where our body is healing, and it's a time of introspection. So to actually do less during those few days is actually what's recommended in the Ayurvedic way. So if your energies are not optimal, don't think of it as a bad thing. It's a time to slow down a little bit.
Well, thank you so much for that. It also really helps me. So there were actually quite a few questions based on how do you fit all of this in? Like, when do you chant your rounds? People are a bit confused on that.
Yeah, so this is why the principles have been offered, and we have to find a way to make it work for us. And this is something I would not do on a general platform, because each person can maybe make changes here and there. So I've had devotees who have helped, and some of them would say, there's no way I can do all of this and sleep as much as I need to. But then they started to really analyze what they were doing with their time, and they realized, no, they actually could add in that extra hour of sleep. They didn't have to wake up super early to try and do everything. They could maybe make a change to the kind of breakfast they were having. They could maybe not go out for a walk or something, but just do some gentle exercises in the house. They could maybe not do the oil massage on a daily basis, but save it for a weekend. So that is not that they're completely avoiding it. And also bear in mind what happened the day before. So some days you might feel you need that extra time in the morning, then give yourself that time. And then don't overly exert yourself. So it's very much about understanding the principles and then making it work. And I myself, I know when I had my children who were very young and very dependent on me, and I was trying to do all of these things from, you know, waking up the deities to doing all the practice. And in reality, I saw my health suffer. I saw over the years, I wasn't able to do what I needed to do. So I had to make adjustments and I had to be realistic. What was going to work for me in my personal family dynamic is going to be very different if I'm living with other people in my house, if I have more support. Is a very personalized question. And I would focus on those things that you feel you need the most and make sure that they are in place.
Oh, well, nice rounded answer. So then a few questions came through around IBS and constipation. So they were wondering if there's something that should be included in their diet, and also, you know, if their children isn't drinking enough water and they can't encourage them to drink more, but they're struggling with constipation. So do you have any advice on that?
Okay, so firstly with the IBS. IBS is actually a diagnostic tool that is used when they realize there is nothing seriously wrong with you. So provided you don't have any of the serious worrying conditions, you now have IBS. There's actually no diagnostic tool for IBS. So again, IBS would probably need to be a session on its own, because IBS is actually showing you signs there's some dysfunction going on.
What else?
And the IBS dysfunctions that go on are actually quite varied. You know, some people may have a lot of bloating, and I can tell you for bloating, one of the best, and especially for children, is to use asafoetida, which is hing, and to boil it in water and maybe add a bit of cumin seeds or ajwain seeds and give it to your child or yourself. Immediately helps to expel the bloating and the air within the body. And again, a very simple kitchen remedy that you can have. If you're struggling with indigestion, then I highly recommend using the spices in your diet, and also making sure you have teas that are infused with these spices to help aid digestion. A lot of the indigestion problems happen because of how we are eating. So the things that I mentioned, eating too fast, eating in a stress state, this will cause loose bowel movements. This will cause us to not digest our food properly. A lot of the symptoms can be eradicated just by following good eating habits and good eating practice, not drinking too much water while we are eating, chewing our food thoroughly. So rather than offer specific ailments, and again, that would be not Ayurveda, because Ayurveda is all about root cause medicine. It is all about what is the dysfunction within your system. Now, if you feel there is a Vata dysfunction going on, and that's why there's a constipation, then you want to add more oily foods to your diet. You want to add more unctuous foods to your diet. The low-fat diet is not recommended in Ayurveda. You know, we want healthy fats. This helps keep the internal system moving. It helps the bowels functioning. For some people, having raisins, black raisins soaked in water at nighttime and drinking that and chewing the raisins can help make sure you're having regular bowel function on a daily basis. Look at the fiber within the diet. Is there enough fiber and then enough water? Now, what I find with children is that children are actually very, very intuitive, and sometimes more intuitive than us adults. So when a child is not drinking water, we want to go actually a little bit deeper. And rather than force the child to drink the water, we want to try and understand, why is that child not wanting the water? I would definitely discourage mothers from adding sweetened products to the water, giving fruit juices. You do not want them to develop those habits from a young age. But maybe adding some spices to the water, maybe warming the water slightly. In Ayurveda, we drink water that is slightly warm because it helps with the digestion. I myself am not someone that's fond of cold drinking water. It just makes my body feel awful. So I can empathize with the child that rejects water, because it might just be the temperature of the water. It might be something they're feeling uncomfortable about. And massaging a child can help with bowel movements. I used to massage my children daily for years, and we would do a hot sesame seed oil massage. And by doing a massage on your children, it really helps you to be able to see any changes, any issues, skin problems, anything you can start to notice there. Doing movements in the stomach, round massage around the abdominal. Castor oil on the stomach can also help with bowel movements, especially in children when they're not taking things in and you're finding it more difficult. So I would start with that. See if you can get the child to maybe be more active, do some massage, get them to talk to you about their bowel movements, get them to not feel like it's a bad thing, but that they should be passing bowel movements every day. And maybe try some raisins or some foods that help with the bowel function.
Well, thank you. How do we digest and overcome thoughts, negative comments, etc., directed at ourselves?
Oh, this is like, I'm sure there's many people online that could probably answer this question far better than I could. So the way that we perceive thoughts and digest them is often to do with our own personal experiences that we have had. And you will find that the same comments or the same environment or the same activities will affect two people very differently. So the way that we can manage that will also be different. Sometimes it's by working on a physical level. So some of us find it easier to control our physical selves than our mental selves. So whether it's through meditative practice, whether it's through yogic practice, whether it's through writing a journal, sometimes being able to just vocalize or write the thoughts that are in our head can stop it from going round and round. Secondly, not considering it a negative thing that we are thinking about something, but actually to say, I acknowledge that I'm having this feeling, I acknowledge that I'm having this thought, but letting it pass. Sometimes in meditation practice, we visualize clouds. We are lying down and you visualize a clear blue sky and clouds within the sky. And as you're lying there, the clouds are moving along. The thoughts that you have, you pin them on the cloud. And as the clouds pass, your thoughts pass. So you're acknowledging, you're not ignoring, but you are letting them go. And this is something that is probably requires a lot of deeper internal work to really help us with the digestive process. But if somebody is struggling with that, then I would also say, is that a general physical imbalance? Is there sluggishness and lethargy in the body? If there is, then addressing things like exercise, making sure that there's massage, making sure that you're doing things within a day that you enjoy. Say for a Vata person, Vata people think about things a lot. And so what is important for a Vata person is to be occupied. Because if their brain is not occupied, it's going to go into all these other things. And so be engaged in something and be engaged in something that's beneficial to you. Then you don't have the time to constantly worry about other thoughts. So this is about managing it according to your physical selves. Think about how is your physical body, and therefore what can you do to help bring physical balance, because that in turn will actually bring mental balance. And not to reject the way that you're feeling, but to acknowledge that it's okay to feel like that.
Furthering this topic on our emotions, so someone asked, how can we overcome emotional eating? Because you mentioned we shouldn't eat when we're emotional.
Okay, actually a very specialized area of work, because we know that there's a prevalence of eating disorders, and we know that there is a prevalence of emotional habits to comfort ourselves. And a lot of this can go back to the way we were raised with food, and how if we were not encouraged to talk about things, we might have used things like food to help us feel better. So it will always be, if the question was about if somebody is using the food emotionally, then that would be, again, quite a deep process in trying to understand why we are compensating our emotions with food. Sometimes it can actually be genetic. There's actually been research to show some of us get a satisfaction from food that we don't feel from other things, which is why we're drawn to food. And if it was more to do with how to avoid eating a meal when you're upset, then I would say take upon some of those practices, like maybe do some chants and mantras before you eat, do some breathing exercises before you eat, really consider eating a meal, a ritual, a practice that we do, like we honor our body. Our body is a temple of Krishna, and therefore when we're eating the meal, we are simply serving this body. And if it's a period of time where something's happened, some grief or some trauma, then at those times to really try and manage your emotional health slowly over time. And obviously the diet will therefore change during those periods of time. You won't be eating, you won't desire the same foods anyway. And so again, that acknowledgement will be there. But these questions are actually quite deep within themselves, and they require individual, personalized guidance. And I'm sure, Tara, you will tell them that I'm available for things like that later on when people would like more personalized interaction. That's available.
Yeah, I was thinking you could share your website with us, and perhaps some of your articles, and we can post it on the comment section to our Facebook and YouTube.
Absolutely. So I will share all of that, and I'm available for people to mention, to contact me for any questions that they have. And I think we'll be running some kind of a virtual clinic for those who want more detailed advice.
I see someone has their hand raised. Perhaps we could allow them to ask their question.
Can you hear me? Harbol, can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Harbol.
Harbol. My question is, in the West, Brahma Muhurta time is sometimes 5:30 in the morning because sunrise around 7 o'clock. So what is the time that you recommend at least we should wake up? Because if we wake up 5:30, it's not enough. You have to wake up much earlier than that. So it will be before, even 40 minutes before Brahma Muhurta. Not 40, even before that 40 minutes. So what is the time you recommend that at least a human being should wake up?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question.
Are you getting my point?
Yes, I do. I understand that you're saying that it may not be enough time for all the things that you need to do. So if we go back to the 40 minutes and we understand that that's the conducive time to awake, if we are predominantly waking a lot before that, unfortunately with time, you will start to see there will be some dysfunction. So the way to manage that is the Vata dosha is probably the dosha that will start to become imbalanced. So by adopting habits within your daily practice that will counteract that. This is where we are sort of counteracting as opposed to following what is conducive. So ensuring you're in bed early enough so that you are well rested. If you start to notice signs of Vata imbalance in the body, maybe oil massages, eating more grounded and nourishing foods. So making sure that that imbalance doesn't start to create. Because what happens is sometimes we have to follow certain practices, which we know may have some effect afterwards. And the way that we ensure that we don't get ill health from that is by making sure that we are balancing it. Now, obviously, as people age as well, sometimes they feel they need less sleep. But I just wanted to add that there has been a lot of research that when you don't sleep well, it can actually affect your memory. And the reason why they feel when people get older, they complain of dementia and memory issues is actually because they're not sleeping properly. So I am a real proponent of good sleep because I have seen so many effects of not sleeping, from immune disorders to any immune dysfunction in the body can happen because of poor sleep. So if you're having to wake up very early, then I would say just be very conscious that you do other things within the day to help rebalance that Vata dosha, which may have become imbalanced.
Okay, thank you for that. So are you saying it is okay to take a nap during the day? Because sometimes, are you saying that? Because in case I have to do, no.
No, because that's the whole point. If you haven't had enough sleep in the morning, then your body is asking for the sleep in the day. But Ayurveda is actually not encouraging of daytime sleep because sleep is really something that brings on tamasya, alasya, it brings on sluggishness within the body. And the only time sleep is recommended during the day is if you're in a very hot climate, if you're undergoing sick health and you're just recovering from it. In those certain circumstances, children, operations, you would be encouraged to have afternoon sleep. But on a daily basis, that extra sleep can also start to create the imbalance. So it's okay to do it occasionally, but if it becomes your daily practice to be waking very early and then to be sleeping in the afternoon, this isn't the circadian rhythm that the body actually naturally wants to follow. The body naturally wants to have a good wake up time, an active day, and then a good sleep structure.
I'm not saying about the sleep, even like a nod, even like a dose. Is it not okay? I don't know. It is happening to me nowadays. or I can wake up very early, but around like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, I really want to hit the, I don't want to hit the bed. I'm not a person
Yeah,
who goes
okay,
to
I understand what you're saying. So what can happen is that we have adrenal glands in our body. This is our stress response, and the body is functioning with stress hormones throughout our life. Now, if we've been through life, or if we've gone through periods of stress, those stress hormones are meant to follow a pattern in the day. They're meant to peak in the morning and then they drop as the day goes on. It's very common people complain of that 3-4 o'clock tiredness. This is when the sugary snacks come out in the common material world. People go for the chocolate bars, they will go for their sweets because they're feeling tired and low. And that sounds a little bit like what you are explaining. So when that happens, is actually, again, going deeper into why, because from what you said, you explained that you started to notice this is happening now. So this is not something you were used to. So now it's going back into your natural body stress response. You know, analyzing, have I been pushing myself too much for too many years? Do I need to slow down? Have I gone through emotional periods of stress? Is there something within because what happens is if we keep pushing past it and not listening to the signs, we will start to manifest disease and ill health. So managing your blood sugar levels, making sure you've eaten regularly throughout the day. I know when people do pujari work or temple work, they might withhold their hunger. They don't eat regularly, or they don't go to the bathroom regularly. And all of this over time will manifest ill health. So if you're noticing those afternoon dips, I would say definitely have a look at your meals. Ensure that you're getting a balance of your blood sugar is well balanced. So it's not a predominantly carbohydrate meal, but there's lots of protein and healthy fats within your diet, that you're digesting your food properly, that when you're sleeping at nighttime, you're actually getting good quality sleep. Sometimes we sleep, but the sleep is very light. And so we're not actually well rested. And I would go about it addressing it that way, because that will then mean that you don't need that extra sleep. Now, in Ayurveda, they do suggest after eating, you rest. So they do suggest that you lie down on your left-hand side for 40 minutes after a meal, but you're not actually meant to go to sleep. You're meant to let the body digest the food. So that's perfectly fine. If you're just having a rest, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Yeah.
Thank you. I hope that helped.
Well, we have another question here about migraines. They want to know why they occur and how we can control them.
Okay, so I'm not going to talk about migraines because it's too in-depth, and I have just done a small handout. The handout I will happily send to anybody who wants on migraines, and the point of the handout was root causes of migraine, and there's about 5 or 6 key root causes of migraines, which can come from hormonal imbalances, which can come from gut health issues because you are not digesting your food properly, or you have some parasite, or you have some pathogen. And it can also come from the cells within our body. Like I explained, when we digest food, it's not just about the food and the digestion in our stomach, it needs to get to the cells. And it's very common in migraines for people to not be able to assimilate the energy within the cell. So we have these little cellular factories known as the mitochondria, and they are what turn our food into energy. If they are not functioning optimally, it can create lower metabolism within the cells, and this can also trigger migraines. So with migraines, you need to make sure you are following a lot of the key basic habits, ensuring you are well hydrated, ensuring you are well slept. You need to look at what your triggers are. Are there certain foods in your diet that are creating the trigger? Is it when you're not hydrated? Is it when it's too hot? Is it when you're stressed? Is it when you haven't slept? Again, going back to root foundational principles, and then looking further to explore the doshic imbalances. Sometimes we have genetic predispositions where we are not able to break down certain chemicals in our body, and this can create also migraines. So there are a number of factors that you would want to look at to see where the body needs to be addressed. But in women, it can often be related to cycles, menstrual cycles, which is indicative that it's actually hormonally related. So have a look and see where they feel the imbalance is coming from.
Cool, thank you so much. So we've covered just about all the questions, so I was thinking we could end the session here. So yeah, thank you so much for coming and speaking with us, sharing all your knowledge, and I'm sure we've all learned a lot, and ultimately this is all helping us in our devotional service. So yeah, a big thank you from Satvi Sangha team, and we hope to have you on again.
No, thank you so much. It's been a deep desire of mine to reach out to our devotional community, especially the women. And I'm so grateful for this platform that you have so intelligently created, and such a wonderful time where we can all connect. And I hope to have the opportunity to serve you all. So please do share your comments with the organisers, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you would want more of. And I'm here to help serve you all. So thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Haribol, Haribol.